upside down.
Oh, Agent Harris. We first meet him in Season 1, Episode 8, The Legend of Tennessee Moltisanti.
I'm Agent Harris. This is Agent Driscoll. May we come in?
And their first interaction is pretty typical for what you'd expect, though it seems the target of Tony's ire at that moment is Agent Grasso, perhaps because he dropped the glass bowl and broke it. While, of course, Agent Harris doesn't find anything incriminating at the Soprano home that day, it's just the beginning of what will be a seasons-long investigation with multiple attempts to get rats to provide them with the information they need to indict Tony on RICO charges. By the time we're in Season 2, the dynamic has changed a bit between Tony and Agent Harris to the point where they're able to kind of just shoot the shit outside of Satriale's, even though it's no surprise why Agent Harris is there. At the beginning of Season 4, after having no luck in Season 3, there was the basement flood.
Well, we had the lamp problem.
Etc. The FBI has sort of gotten to the kitchen sink method of doing things. So they bring in Adriana LaServa and threaten to arrest and charge her with possession and intent to distribute cocaine so that she would agree to try and get information that could help them with their investigation of Tony. How does that go?
How should we handle the other thing, the Nieves murder?
Take it over from the Long Branch PD.
Now, starting in Season 6, we have Agent Harris take on a pretty different role in the sense of his changed priorities.
Actually, I've been in Pakistan.
Now, Tony Soprano wasn't necessarily his target, but instead, terrorism threats. This makes sense in terms of the timing of it all, because at that point, we were now living in a post-9/11 world where the government was much more focused on fighting terror than fighting wise guys.
Seriously, I was transferred to terrorism.
Feel bad for the guy.
Tony says he kind of feels bad for the guy. It makes me think of the Season 1 finale, when Tony listens to the tapes of Livia and Junior talking. The look on Agent Harris's face, he feels badly for the guy. Not just some wise guys talking crap, but his own mother and uncle.
What'd you lose a little weight?
Wait a second, before you say anything. Have you lost a little weight?
Disease you picked up.
Agent Harris jokes that the Satriale's veal parm sub may be the cure for his parasite. Or maybe he just missed Tony. That's not to say that they stopped prosecuting guys in the mafia. Johnny Sack gets sentenced later on this season. But as far as Agent Harris is concerned, Tony may actually be a helpful source now. Funny how things change, huh?
I'll help you out. Could I bank the result in goodwill?
Well, what happens is, I would personally write you what's called a 5K letter.
A 5K letter, or 5K motion, is a request to a court to reduce a defendant's sentence based on their cooperation with the government in a criminal case, including whether the information that the defendant provides is legitimate, reliable, and significant. End times, huh? Ready for the rapture. In the penultimate episode of The Sopranos, Tony sees Agent Harris at Satriale's, and Agent Harris warns Tony that the Lupertazzi family is planning on making a move against him and his top guys. Snitches implied that the wheels are already in motion. Agent Harris is with us all the way through to the very end, and he actually meets with Tony in person at the very beginning of Made in America. And guess who else is there? Paulie. I guess Paulie's okay with talking to the government sometimes. Well, he didn't do the talking here, but he knew who Tony was meeting with. I guess if you're trying to survive the wars by the skin of your balls, you do what you gotta do.
World War II, your outfit protected the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I think Roosevelt told Vito Genovese where Hitler was.
He actually was on the other side, at least for a period of time. In 1937, he escaped to Italy to avoid prosecution on a murder charge and became a friend of Benito Mussolini. In terms of allies to the U.S., there were fears that certain longshoremen who worked in New York were sympathetic to fascism. So lucky Luciano, even though he was already in prison by then, he ordered his capos to act as lookouts and report any suspicious activity. Luciano's contacts also assisted the Allies in their 1943 invasion of Sicily. By the end of the series, we can really start to see in clearer focus that Tony and Agent Harris are more alike than we may have otherwise thought.
Leave it out, all right? I'll heat it up.
Now everything's cold.
Well, that's why they invented microwaves. For inconsiderate husbands.
Well, then don't leave it out.
Agent Harris's phone call with who I assume is his wife sounds similar to a conversation that Tony and Carmela have had, probably had many times over the years, actually.
All right, don't bust my chops, Camille. I got a lot on my mind.
Tony had Gumar's, And it looks like Agent Harris now has one too, or something like that. Did he have others? In a silly way, you could almost argue that Tony is one of Agent Harris's Gumars, FBI Gumar, that is. He's not really supposed to be talking to this guy who was the target of an investigation for the past few years that they're still going after, apparently. But here he is on the phone with Tony, giving Tony the location of the boss of the family that they're currently at war with. Not only that, there's another FBI agent in the room, whom I assume is an FBI agent or someone in law enforcement. We see her with the gun and badge. So he's also playing with fire in that aspect too. They've been investigating Tony Soprano for many years. They still are. What if she says something? What if she reports it, that he was talking to Tony? Just like how Big Puss was having these fantasies of law enforcement, according to Skip Lipari. It seems like it might be the other way around for Agent Harris. He's having these fantasies of being in the mafia or working with the mafia. You can find yourself getting too close.
If only Antonio got popped.
Damn, we're gonna win this thing.
Yeah.
Multiple calls traced back to a payphone in Oyster Bay, Long Island.
I gotta take this.
The snitch has implied that the wheels have already been set in motion. Now, who's the snitch? We know that Jimmy Patriel is a snitch who was identified at the end of season 5 by Neil after Johnny Sack got arrested.
Jimmy Patriel was a cooperator.
So presumably the news would have gotten around to the Lupertazzi family that Jimmy Patriel was at the source of this information that led to Johnny Sack's arrest and indictment. So I imagine that this snitch isn't Jimmy Patriel. So who is it? We can't say for sure, but something interesting that Agent Harris is involved with. Naturally, as Agent Harris and Tony become closer and more allied with each other as we progress through the series, it can be natural for us to start liking Agent Harris more too. We may have liked him all along. But we have to remember that every big moment with Adriana and the FBI, Agent Harris was there. As of the time that he got switched to the terror squad, which was right at the start of season 6, Tony hadn't been indicted, which was Agent Harris's one big goal. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think of Agent Harris? As always, I'd love to hear from you. And if you liked this video, be sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Sopranos Blueprint.